So it hasn't exactly been sunshine and rainbows lately for our favorite little EV maker, and it's actually been a little bit rough. I mean, the stock's plummeting, and beyond that, there's, just not exactly a whole ton of great news lately. And even though I'm personally still pretty optimistic, even to a fault, what can I say? I'm getting a little worried. I mean, don't get me wrong here, gang. I still think there's a road to victory here, and there's still a decent chance. I mean, ideally, I would have liked to have had my lifestyle vehicle already in the garage and be eagerly awaiting my order for the pickup, but that hasn't happened, unfortunately. So I'm probably in a similar boat as many of you. I've turned in my lease. I'm driving my backup shop truck now full-time, and I'm going to be needing something soon. So I could use a little help. What's up, Motorheads, and welcome back to Gearbox Pizza. Today, we're going to be taking a look at what else is out there, what to get if you're coming to terms with the fact that you won't be getting your brand spanking CANOO anytime soon. And the good news, there's plenty to choose from right now. And the bad news, is that that's not exactly true. That is, if you have any sort of budget. Okay, so where do we start? As I said earlier, I just turned in my lease. It was a gas-powered, super fast SUV sort of thing. It was actually my first gas-powered car in 10 years. Yeah, I got started in electric pretty early, way back. I guess you could say I got a little lucky, and I was selected to participate in BMW's first real all-electric trial. If you were living in Southern California, several years ago, you may have even seen one of these offensive decal jobs on wheels driving around. All kidding aside, this thing really opened my eyes to this whole electric thing, and truth be told, I just kind of love this thing. But I temporarily left the whole electric world behind as my needs sort of changed, during that time. I mean, I drove coast to coast 5 times during that 3-year lease, and it's possible with the Tesla, I suppose, but it's not exactly ideal. Anyway, going back to electric and really looking forward to it. And I really, really hope that it was going to be a CANOO, but hey, I can't wait much longer, so here we are. So I'd like another SUV for now. I mean, it was just way too convenient, but long term, I think I'd really love to have a manual M2 parked next to it, but that's, it's not happening anytime soon, and that's a whole nother conversation. But seriously, the new M2 is pretty amazing. All right, moving on. So I'm no Rockefeller, so price is unfortunately a consideration, and I think we can eliminate a few things right off the bat. And I'm looking at you, Rivian. I mean, as amazing and as capable as these things are, the R1S is just way too much money, and that's even if you can get one. Now, you can get around the whole order and wait forever to get yours, but boy, is that going to cost you. I mean, a quick stroll through Auto Trader, and you're going to quickly see some big numbers. I mean, man, 110, 115 grand, ouch. So, sorry Rivian, that's a big pass, although the R2S might just be the sweet spot, as personally, I think the R1S is just a little bit too big if you ask me. Alright, anyway, moving on. Okay, so price-wise, there's several other EVs that we can, just scratch off the list, like the BMW iX, or any of those jelly bean looking things from Mercedes. Lucid, not even close. There's the F-150 Lightning, which is very solid, a bit expensive, but look, I just don't really need another truck right now. Same thing goes for the Hummer and, all those other giant flagship trucks that, a lot of them aren't even going to be out for a while. Anyway, going back to the CANOO lifestyle vehicle. Look, it's a van. I mean, it's a crazy, interesting looking kind of van, but it's still very much a van. Although I'd argue that the lifestyle vehicle with the adventure pack could be seen as sort of an SUV, and it's still a van. Now, I'm personally not all that interested in a van if it's not a CANOO, and that's just fine, as there's really not that much out there, with the exception of the Volkswagen ID Buzz. So I bet those who pull the trigger on this thing, they're gonna love it, but it's just not for me. I mean, it looks okay, I guess, but man, I really think they missed this huge opportunity to really style this thing right. I mean, side by side, this fella against the original, it's not even close. And to top it off, pretty expensive for what you get, and it's not going to be available here in the States for a little bit of time, so this one's going to be a pass. Alright, so there's a bunch of stuff we've already crossed off the list, so what's left? Now, there's several EVs coming up that I'd have no problem recommending, even though they may not be right for me. I mean, choosing a vehicle is full of intangibles, right? I mean, you sort of just like what you like, and again, we're going to be looking at several really great EVs here that I just may not have any interest in for a whole variety of reasons. All right, starting off, there's the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and I dig the looks. I mean, it's cool. It is the opposite of the Chevy Bolt. That's more or less like, well, let's say the brand muffin hold the butter of the car world. Anyway, the price is solid, starting in the low 40s. You can eke out over 300 miles of range, even though you probably need the slow one to do that. And the Koreans have been building quality vehicles for a long time, so dependability should be totally solid. And look, this thing is cool, but what can I say? I guess it doesn't speak to me, so we're just gonna pass, but it is cool. I can sort of say the same thing for the Kia EV6, although that GT spec version, well, the thing's got like 600 horsepower. I mean, on second thought, with those numbers, it really should be on my list, but the reality is it's just not quite big enough. That and the GT trim, as amazing as it is, the range sort of just plummets to an EPA rated 206 miles, which really means you're getting more like 160, 170 miles or so. So having lived with several EVs with ranges in like the 80-mile range isn't exactly a huge issue, but anything new these days should really have like 200 real-world miles of range. I mean, look, so we're gonna pass, but if I see you driving one of these out in the real world, expect a head nod and an attaboy from me. Next up is the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which I'll admit does make a lot of sense on paper, but this is sort of a big one. Well, when I heard Ford was turning the Mustang into a crossover, my imagination was sort of inundated with some pretty horrific visions, but I'll admit it turned out just so much better than I thought it would, but I still just can't quite unsee a Mustang that's had maybe a few too many banana milkshakes or something. I don't know. And then there's the Volkswagen ID4. I don't know, it's just, yeah, okay, I'll say it. It's kind of boring looking, and regardless of the numbers, which are all good, and the company, I mean, I've loved Volkswagens like my whole life, I just can't seriously consider this fella on looks alone. I mean, this thing in white is, well, it's basically like an invisibility cloak, right? Now, there's a handful of other potential options out there, but I'm just not gonna get really into too much detail. I mean, bottom line, if you're watching this, you're probably somewhat of a motorhead, much like myself, and the ID4, yeah, boring is just something you can't really tolerate when it comes to your vehicles. I mean, I had a Cadillac ELR for a few years, and yeah, it might have been pretty bad, but it certainly wasn't boring.
This is the Cadillac ELR. It is awful.
There's the Nissan Ariya, which actually looks pretty great, but I'm passing. Then there's the boring champion of the universe, the Chevy Bolt. Nope. There's the Kia Niro, the Hyundai Kona Electric, the Toyota BZ4X. Dudes, who's naming these things? I mean, seriously. And then there's the Subaru Solterra, which looks better and it doesn't have the completely bonkers name. Anyway, these are all fine. They're just sort of like a warm mug of chamomile tea, when what you're really looking for is some 160 proof bathtub tequila. Long story. Anyway, having said all that, we're really left with one serious option, and I'm really looking for some thoughts and opinions here, even though this might end up being a bit of a boring choice, and I'm sure most of you have guessed it by now. I'm talking about the Tesla Model Y Performance. Alright, so let's break this down a little bit. So, starting with the price. After the recent discounts and that potential $7,500 tax credit, all of a sudden the Model Y is significantly more affordable than it was. And then there's just the flat out speed of this thing. I mean, yeah, look, I wouldn't expect this thing to be ear to ear grins and the twisties, but it's actually seriously quick. So that's fun. There's pretty amazing real world range when you need it, along with that supercharger network that's just like light years beyond any other charging network. Then there's the autopilot, which is cool, I suppose, even though I don't see myself using it all that much, but hey, cool to have. Man, though, I really wish I had a gauge cluster. I mean, even a heads-up display would be fine. I don't know, I've seen some aftermarket versions, but they do look a little janky, so I don't know. So that's more or less where I'm at personally, and as much as I would have just killed to be squirting around town in my CANOO pickup, really doesn't look like that's gonna happen anytime soon. I mean, it really sucks to even consider any other options, but like many of you, I had my heart set on the CANOO, but life goes on and I need something in the meantime, so let me have it. Am I don't know, am I a sellout for considering the Model Y, or am I a savvy consumer? I don't know. I mean, I guess the Model Y is, well, it's sort of like the Heineken of the car world. I mean, they sell a ton, and they sell a ton because it's very, very good. But then there's the enthusiasts who won't throw back some suds unless it's like a micro batch garage style. But even those dudes, yeah, I bet they enjoy a cold Heine from time to time. Would love to hear your thoughts on this, even if you, I don't know, try to talk me out of it. Let's hear it.